Hello guys, welcome again to the channel. We have again another standard deck tech now that the full spoiler for the last avatar set has been released, and I thought about what would be the look of this kind of build, basing on two specific card which will highlight, particularly this card, Zhao the Moonslayer, combining it with my Scornful Striker. You can just imagine what will be its look, and I've decided to come up with an initial list for this one. And since the Rakdos colors, my favorite two-color combination, and let's see what would be its preview for this format with the last avatar set included. So I call this deck the Rakdos Punisher, and it's composed of 31 creatures, 5 instants, 2 sorceries, and 22 lands. So let's take a look at the lineup, starting off with a few of the 1-drops. So its combination, particularly if you are looking at the previous metagame, or let's say before the last avatar set is joining this format, you know that these two 1-drop are very popular among the top tier decks. And until now, Hard Glow would still be the best 1-drop, and that's why I considered it to add like a 4 copy in the deck. So this goes with having a 1 to cast 1/2 that can be pumped later on and can deal some extra damage whenever it attacks. So it goes well that the curve should be started with this red's best 1-drop in the metagame. And to partner with that is the Cecil Dark Knight, so that's 2 copies in the deck. It is particularly a death touch. It can't basically drawback here would be you will lose life whenever it deals damage. But the part here is that you can have a 2/3 creature that those life loss count would not be in vain later on, as you get to able to transform it into Cecil Redeemed Paladin. But early on, and the important thing is you have a 1-drop, you have a death touch, and have a 2/3 power creature that kind of fit in the deck. And let's take a look at the 2-drops. Of course, the mentioned here is Zhao and Mai, but what would be our partner for these cards? So particularly, given here that you need to punish your opponent's casting, or whenever they cast some spells, or whenever they draw cards. So you have here your 2 punishers, which are also reflected in the mono red aggro deck. So we have 4 copies of Razor Keen Needlehead. More card effects from your opponent gets them to deal damage for each of those card rows. And partner is Scalding Viper, which is punishing opponents whenever they cast a spell with mana value 3 or less. That's only 1 damage, but particularly it would still count as an extra added effect because of your strategy to deal optimized damage as possible. And with the partner of this, we have Mai, that's 4 copies in the deck, that punishes players whenever they cast a non-creature spell. And also First Strike by itself, which means that dealing damage in the combat would not be a lot of the problem for blockers, unless of course they have 3 power toughness. But having here First Strike, make sure that you will not lose that in the typical combat damage, and paying them and punishing them whenever they play their non-creature spells at a cost of 2 life. So I'm making sure that's 4 copies in the deck in case that it would be a really target on the head, because of most of the spot removals would really they needed to deal it with Mai before they cast their big spells. So having multiple copies, making sure that whenever the first copy is dealt with, you would still have another to punish them. In addition to that, let's take a look again with Zhao the Moonslayer. So Zhao is particularly a 2 to cast 2/2 menace, which means that blocking would also be impossible for most of your opponents. You punish them by making them tap, and then if you put a counter on Zhao, it's basically a walking Blood Moon. So as long as it has counter on him, basic lands are, non-basic lands are mountains, and paying 7 will not be really hard for this deck because of the setup of the fire bending. There's a way for you to pay this ahead in certain situations, but the important thing is that you punish them by making them non-basic lands enter tap. So this is 3 copies in the deck. So, and also to support of these cards, we have a Deep Cavern Bat. So Cavern Bat is basically the way for you to get their best non-land card at the moment, and also taking a look at what will be their following game plan, and you can adjust your strategy accordingly. So this is also a flyer with lifelink, which means that any damage raise would also be not a problem for your deck, because you can just gain that life. Also making sure that also the life loss from Cecil would also be gained back. In addition to that, of course, how do you make this one bigger? So we have the option for Inti. So Inti would basically have a trigger to whenever you attack, you may discard a card. Then you put up some counter on a tank creature. It gains trample on the end of turn, but whenever you discard one or more cards, you can exile the top cards with Reverie, and then you may play it until your next end step. So basically, that's an extra card draw for your deck. You can also pump up your bat for damage raise benefits, and also get you some good card advantage and filter out those unnecessary lands. And also some kind of a similar effect is Web, which is another 2-drop for the Rakdos colors. It gets you to have an additional +1/+1 counter if creature control, if an opponent loses life this turn. So those who enter after the combat damage step particularly gets you to put +1/+1 counters on them. And also whenever you cast a lizard spell, it can deal 1 damage to target opponent. It is also a good attacker by itself, and it has a way to protect its life from spot removals by having you to pay 2 life for the ward effect. So that is just a bonus one-off for this build, so that you can have more options prior to what card you would want to play on certain strategy. And also I've considered to have this main deck, Mage Bane Lizard. This punishes some of the popular decks, particularly the BB decks, because they're playing non-creature spells, and they're kind of chaining this reaction, and Mage Bane Lizard basically punish them for that kind of setup. So for each non-creature spell, it will deal damage equal to the number of non-creature spells they've casted this turn. And also it has a 1/4 body, which can also be surviving most cheap burn spells. And we have also tried this new card, Zoku Conflicted, because it's only going to be just a 2/3 creature, but gets you to draw a card. You can become a 3/4 with a some counters. You can also add additional red mana, but the only drawback is that it will become part of your opponent. But the only thing is that you can get these benefits at the costing of losing 2 life. But particularly in this aggro deck, it's not that of a big deal, because of course you need to punish them before you just pay those extra life to gain those certain board advantage. And the rest of the one-offs, because it's not that it's not that obvious that I'm a fan of several one-off creatures, is a copy of Gasa Rider. Gasa Rider is basically just another that of the Deep Cavern Bat, except that it has a start of engines, and then it can only exile or discard instant or sorcery card from your opponent. And as long as you get a max speed, this becomes +1/+1 and has menace. So additional attacker, additional damage, and can be a problem in blocking. And lastly, to benefit this Razor Fiend and Scully Viper, we have a certain copy of Odger Axonil, which again became a part of the mono red deck strategy in the current format. So this would also be reflected here, so that all of those red swords that are not combat damage would get to benefit to 4 damage instead of only 1. So for the instants, of course, spot removals and burn spells will be your forte in this kind of deck build. So we have 2 copies of Artist Act, 2 copies Lightning Strike for direct damage to the dome, and also can deal off with any creature with 3 toughness, and a copy only of Shoot Desire for certain non-outlaw targets. And before we go for the lands, we're checking again the sorcery speed less on daily indoctrination. This goes to also as a kind of discard effect, a coercion setup, but can also be used to earthbend a creature and becomes 2/2 for 2 with haste. And that means that drawing daily indoctrination in the late game would also mean that you will still have a creature to put to your board state for additional attackers. And lastly, of course, again, the lands. Particularly for now, we have Multiversal Passage and Starting Town as our mana fix. These are the 2 new cards from the Universes Beyond, which goes to fix the black-red mana, and particularly Duskmile Verge would really our old dual land for this deck. But we still have the benefit of these new cards, aside from also playing the basic lands. So we have Fire Nation Palace, which is only drawback is that it will come tap unless you control a basic land, and can also have your creature against Firebending for until end turn, and 1 copy of Realm of Ko, which is this black version, which only comes tap unless you control a basic land. It can also create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token, which this token can block and be blocked by non-spirit creatures. So it kind of fits well in the deck. Of course, utility cards are your escape in the late game to have this board advantage still being continued in the deck. So let's take on the deck stats. Particularly, it's more in red, 27 and 18 for black. We have more of course of the production with 23 for red and 13 for the black mana. The converted mana cost for this deck build is 1.92. It's just going well. That's the 4 mana cost as your highest value, but you can still be more flexible in the sideboard if you would try to consider 5 mana cost spells against maybe some of the mid-range and control matchups. And of course, you would need lands to cast those. And last but not the least, we only have 1 extra here, which is the adventure. But I think the only extra is also we need to also note down the start your engines setting from Gastal Rider to know which one of you are ready before you reach the 4 top gear for this deck. And that's pretty much it, guys. This is again an initial deck build for Rakdos Punisher for the standard format with the last avatar set. Don't forget to subscribe, notifications on, and see you on the next video upload.